The great halls of the Galactic Council echoed with worried voices. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds filled the circular chamber, their bodies glowing, floating, or simply sitting according to their species. Emergency lights pulsed softly along the walls, marking this as no ordinary meeting. High above the gathering, Council Leader Bluestone's tentacles waved in distress. His crystalline body reflected the red emergency lights as he spoke to the assembly. The situation at the borders of the Star Empire and the Unity Worlds grows worse by the hour. Both sides have moved their war fleets into position. Thomas Parker, the junior diplomat from Earth, watched from his small seat in the lower rings. At just 28 years old, he was one of the youngest representatives ever to sit in these halls. He looked around at the worried faces of the alien diplomats. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few were just clouds of light. But they all showed fear in their own ways. Our peacekeeping forces are already spread thin across 3 other conflicts, Bluestone continued. We cannot stop both fleets with what we have left. The Unity World's ambassador, a tall being made of flowing water held in a force field, rose to speak. The Star Empire has claimed our outer colonies for the last time. We will not back down. Your colonies? The Star Empire's representative, a creature of living metal, stood up so quickly that his chair fell backward. Those worlds have been part of our trading routes for 1,000 years. Thomas looked down at his datapad, studying the numbers. Both sides had massive fleets. If they started fighting, millions would die. He thought about Earth's history, about all the wars humans had fought, and what they had learned from them. Maybe. Before he could stop himself, Thomas stood up. I have a suggestion. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes turned to look at him. Most junior diplomats never spoke during full sessions, especially not during emergencies. The human wishes to speak, Bluestone said, his voice carrying a hint of curiosity. Please, share your thoughts. Thomas took a deep breath. Earth has extensive experience with conflict resolution. We could send military advisors to help both sides set up a proper defense line. This would give us time to negotiate. He couldn't finish. The chamber erupted in panic. Several diplomats actually fled their seats. Others began shouting in their native languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up. Thomas saw fear in every alien face, real fear, not just worry. Silence. Bluestone's voice boomed through the hall. The chaos slowly died down, but the fear remained. From the shadows of the upper rings, an ancient voice spoke. The human does not know. He is too young to remember. All heads turned toward the voice. A figure moved in the darkness, and Thomas caught his breath. It was Red Star, one of the oldest members of the council. His body was like a red spider web of energy, dim with age. He hadn't spoken in a council session for over a decade. Remember what? Thomas asked, still standing. Red Star floated down to the center of the chamber. Let me tell you, young human, why your suggestion caused such fear. Let me tell you why the Council has strict laws about human military involvement in galactic conflicts. Let me tell you a story from 50 years ago. The chamber grew completely silent. Even the Star Empire and Unity World's representatives stopped glaring at each other. It began, Red Star said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast room, with a small human mining colony on Mars. Just a few thousand of your people, living in domes and digging for metals. They had no weapons, no warships, no defense systems. They were not soldiers. Thomas leaned forward, along with every other being in the chamber. That day, Red Star continued, his red glow pulsing with the memory. We learned why humans must never be pushed into war. We learned why the galaxy trembles at the thought of human military advisors. We learned about you. Red Star's energy form flickered as he continued his story, casting moving shadows across the council chamber. Thomas sat forward in his seat, along with thousands of other diplomats, all eager to hear what had happened on Mars 50 years ago. The Ravagers came without warning, Red Star said. They were unstoppable back then. They had taken 32 worlds in just 10 years. Their ships were black as space itself. Their weapons could cut through any known shield. They never bothered with diplomacy or demands. They simply took what they wanted. The ancient counselor paused, his red light dimming slightly. We thought Earth's colonies would fall within hours. The Ravagers had a fleet of 50 warships. The Mars colony had mining equipment. Images appeared in the air above the council floor, recordings from that day. Thomas watched as massive black ships descended toward the red Martian surface. They looked like angular clouds of darkness, each one bigger than the largest Earth ships today. The colony's leader was a man named Jack Miller. Red Star continued. He was not a soldier. He was not a warrior. He was a mining foreman who liked to read old military history books. When the Ravagers appeared, he had exactly 40 minutes to prepare a defense. The images shifted to show the Mars colony, a collection of white domes and industrial buildings spread across the red desert. Mining machines stood idle in deep pits, their giant drills covered in red dust. The Ravagers landed their troops in 3 waves. Red Star said, "Standard invasion pattern." They expected the humans to either surrender or die. Instead, he paused again, his voice dropping lower. Instead, they found that humans are very creative when cornered. The next images made Thomas sit up straight. He watched as massive mining drills burst from the Martian soil beneath the Ravager troops, tearing through their ranks. Industrial lasers, meant for cutting rock, sliced through alien armor. Heavy excavators, their scoops reinforced with makeshift armor, charged like ancient war elephants. The Ravagers had never seen anything like it. Red Star continued. Their sensors were calibrated to detect weapons, but these weren't weapons. Every piece of mining equipment, every industrial tool, had been turned into an instrument of war. The humans used their knowledge of the terrain. They collapsed tunnels under Ravager positions. They filled valleys with clouds of fine red dust that clogged alien machinery. The images showed more scenes from the battle. Humans in mining suits used their suits' magnetic grapples to swing between buildings, dropping improvised bombs. Others had mounted drilling lasers onto mobile platforms, creating crude but effective tanks. The Ravagers lost 2,000 troops in the first hour, Red Star said. They had never lost more than 100 in any previous invasion. They retreated to their ships, thinking they would simply bomb the colony from orbit. That's when they discovered that humans are quick learners. New images appeared, showing Ravager ships exploding in Mars orbit. The humans had studied the wreckage of the first wave's weapons. In just hours, they had adapted their mining scanners to detect the weak points in Ravager ship design. They turned their deep-core mining charges into anti-ship missiles. Thomas watched in amazement as more ships fell. The surviving Ravager vessels fled, leaving their dead behind. The images faded, leaving only Red Star's dim red glow illuminating the chamber. When it was over, he said softly, the humans had destroyed 28 Ravager ships and killed over 5,000 of their troops. The Mars colony's casualties: 17 dead, 42 wounded. The Ravagers never attacked another human settlement. The chamber was completely silent. Thomas looked around at the assembled aliens, understanding their fear a little better now. That, Red Star concluded, was our first lesson about humans in war. They do not think like other species. They turn tools into weapons, weaknesses into strengths, and they learn. They learned so very, very quickly. The images of the Mars battle faded from the council chamber, but Red Star's story continued. His red energy form pulsed brighter as he spoke of what happened next. The victory at Mars changed everything, he said. Not because humans had beaten the Ravagers, but because of what they did after. Most species would have celebrated. Humans, they began to study. New images appeared above the council floor. Thomas watched laboratories filled with teams of scientists examining pieces of Ravager technology. At the center of it all was a woman with gray hair tied back in a tight bun, directing the research with intense focus. Dr. Anna Wright, Red Star said. She led Earth's first alien technology research team. The Council thought humans would take decades to understand even the basics of advanced technology. We were wrong. So very wrong. The images showed human scientists taking apart Ravager weapons, studying their power sources, analyzing their metal alloys. Every discovery led to new human innovations. Ships began to change. Weapons evolved. Within 5 years, Red Star continued. Humans had not only understood Ravager technology, they had improved it. Where Ravager shields could stop energy weapons, human-modified shields could absorb the energy and power their ships. Where Ravager metals were strong, humans found ways to make them lighter and stronger. Thomas noticed many of the older council members shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some even dimmed their lights as if trying to hide from the memories. But that wasn't what truly frightened us, Red Star said. No, what terrified the council was how humans mixed technologies. They would take a piece of Ravager armor, combine it with their own steel alloys, add in mining technology principles, and create something entirely new, something none of us had ever imagined. The images showed human ships now, but they looked different from anything Thomas had seen before. They combined elements from dozens of alien designs with unique human innovations. Other species began to notice. Red Star's voice grew quieter. They saw how quickly humans advanced. Many wanted human scientists to study their technology, hoping to gain an advantage over their rivals. The council tried to stop it, but he paused, his red glow flickering. Well, humans are very good at finding ways around rules. New images appeared, showing human scientists working with various alien species. Each collaboration led to new breakthroughs, new technologies, new ways of combining different scientific principles. In just 20 years, Red Star said, humans advanced more than most species do in 5 centuries. They took everything they learned and made it better. Their ships became faster, their weapons more precise, their shields nearly impenetrable. But they didn't stop there. The final images showed massive space stations, shipyards where humans and aliens worked together, and laboratories filled with strange new devices. They shared what they learned, Red Star said, surprising Thomas. Not everything, of course, but enough to help their allies advance as well. They taught other species how to combine technologies in new ways, how to think differently about scientific problems. The images faded, leaving the chamber in dim light once again. Red Star's voice grew serious. That is why we fear human military involvement, young Thomas. Not just because you are dangerous in battle, but because you make others dangerous too. You teach, you adapt, you improve. And most frightening of all, you never, ever stop learning. Thomas looked around the chamber. Many of the alien diplomats were nodding slowly, remembering those years of rapid change. He had never thought of human technological advancement as something to fear, but seeing it through their eyes, he began to understand. Red Star wasn't finished, but this was only the beginning, he said. Soon, we would learn that humans were even more dangerous when they didn't fight at all. Red Star's energy form swirled in the center of the council chamber, creating patterns that looked almost like stars. As humans grew stronger, he continued, other species became interested in having them as allies. Some were more aggressive in their approach. New images appeared in the air, showing a massive empire's fleet. Their ships were elegant, built of something that looked like golden crystal. Thomas recognized them from his history lessons, the Crystal Empire, once the largest power in the galaxy. The Crystal Empire ruled over 2,000 worlds, Red Star said. They had the strongest fleet, the most advanced weapons, and the richest worlds. They wanted humans on their side, but they knew Earth would never agree to an alliance willingly. So they tried something clever, or at least they thought it was clever. The images changed to show attacks on human colonies, ships that looked like pirate vessels, but were just a bit too well organized, too precise in their attacks. They hired raiders to attack human settlements, Red Star explained. The plan was simple. make humans feel threatened, then offer protection through an alliance. They had used this trick on 30 other species. It always worked. But then they met Mark Thompson. A new image appeared. A man in a simple black suit sitting at a desk covered in holographic displays. He looked ordinary, unremarkable even, but Thomas noticed how the older council members seemed to shrink back at the sight of him. Thompson was Earth's chief of intelligence. Red Star continued. He noticed patterns in the raids that others missed. Small things. The raiders' flight patterns, their targeting choices, their timing. Within 3 months, he had traced everything back to the Crystal Empire. The images showed Thompson presenting his findings to Earth's leaders. But what happened next surprised Thomas. Earth didn't declare war, Red Star said. They didn't demand answers. They didn't even accuse the Crystal Empire publicly. Instead, they did something far more dangerous. They began a silent war. New images flowed past. Human traders meeting with various alien species, diplomatic missions to distant worlds, seemingly innocent business deals, and trade agreements. Thompson's team had studied the Crystal Empire's economy, Red Star explained. They found its weak points, its dependencies, its secret debts. Humans began buying specific resources, creating shortages in key industries. They spread rumors in the right places, causing investment panics. They made trade deals with the Empire's rival powers. Thomas watched in amazement as the images showed the Crystal Empire's gradual decline. Trade routes shifted. Allies became uncertain. Colonies began requesting independence. The Crystal Empire's leaders didn't understand what was happening. Red Star said, his voice filled with what sounded almost like admiration. Their economy was collapsing, but they couldn't find any enemies to fight. Their allies were leaving, but no one was threatening them. They were dying, but they couldn't see the knife. The final images showed the Crystal Empire's dissolution. Thousands of worlds declared independence. The mighty Golden Fleet was sold off piece by piece to pay debts. An empire that had stood for 10,000 years fell in less than 5. Not a single shot was fired. Red Star said quietly. No battles were fought. No blood was spilled. The Crystal Empire was destroyed more completely than if Earth had sent 1,000 warships against it. And the most frightening part, most humans don't even know this war happened. Thomas looked around the council chamber. The fear in the alien diplomat's eyes had changed somehow. This wasn't just fear of human weapons or technology anymore. This was fear of human minds. That, Red Star said, was when we truly began to fear humans, not for their strength in battle, but for their ability to win wars without fighting them at all. His red glow dimmed slightly. But even this was not the end of our lessons about humanity. Next came the mercenaries. Red Star's energy form pulsed with a darker shade of red as he continued his story. The council chamber had grown colder, or perhaps it just felt that way to Thomas as he listened. After the fall of the Crystal Empire, something unexpected happened. Red Star said. Individual humans began traveling to other worlds, offering their services as military advisors. At first, we didn't worry. What harm could a few hundred humans do in a galaxy of trillions? New images appeared above the chamber floor. They showed a small agricultural world with purple fields stretching to the horizon. Simple farming machines worked the land while peaceful aliens with 4 arms tended to their crops. The Green Harvest people were farmers, not warriors, Red Star explained. They had never fought a war in their 5,000 years of civilization, but they had something others wanted. Their crops could grow anywhere, even on dead worlds. The images changed to show warships appearing in the sky above the farming world. They were massive vessels belonging to a warrior species that Thomas didn't recognize. The Raiders of the Storm Edge demanded half of all Green Harvest worlds. Red Star continued. They had a fleet of 200 ships. The Green Harvest people had nothing but farming equipment and a single human advisor named Lisa Reed. Thomas watched as a woman in simple civilian clothes stood before the Green Harvest Council. She wasn't tall or physically impressive. She looked more like a teacher than a warrior. Lisa Reed had been a military strategy instructor on Earth, Red Star said. She looked at the Green Harvest people's resources and saw what everyone else had missed. Those farming machines could be used differently. Those peaceful people could learn to defend themselves. The images showed Green Harvest farmers learning new ways to use their equipment. Harvesting machines were modified to launch specialized seed pods, except now the pods contained specialized mineral compounds that could disable ship engines. Irrigation systems were adapted to create electromagnetic fields that disrupted enemy targeting systems. When the raiders attacked, they found no easy victory. Red Star's voice carried a note of grim amusement. Instead, they found their ships being disabled by clouds of magnetized plant spores. Their ground troops got lost in fields of fast-growing crops that their sensors couldn't penetrate. Their communications were jammed by modified weather control satellites. The images showed raider ships retreating in chaos, many of them damaged or drifting helplessly in space. The Green Harvest people had won without taking a single life. The news spread quickly, Red Star said. Suddenly, every smaller world wanted human military advisors. They offered citizenship, wealth, anything to get humans to teach them. The Council tried to stop it. We passed laws forbidding human military involvement in local conflicts. Thomas watched as more images showed humans appearing on different worlds, always in civilian clothes, always looking harmless. But wherever they went, the balance of power shifted. The laws didn't work, Red Star admitted. Humans would become citizens of other worlds. They would take jobs as agricultural consultants or industrial efficiency experts. But somehow, wherever they went, peaceful species learned to defend themselves. Weak worlds became strong. The final images showed maps of the galaxy, with power structures shifting, old empires losing their grip as smaller worlds gained strength. One human, Red Star concluded, just one human military advisor, could change the fate of an entire civilization. They didn't bring weapons. They didn't build warships. They simply taught others to use what they already had in ways no one had imagined. Thomas noticed that several council members were actually trembling now. He understood why. Humans weren't just dangerous because they could fight. They were dangerous because they could teach others to fight too. But even this, Red Star said, his glow intensifying, was not what truly terrified us. No, that came when we foolishly tried to strike at Earth itself. Red Star's energy form grew brighter, almost painful to look at. The council chamber felt tense as he prepared to reveal what Thomas sensed would be the most frightening part of the story. 20 years ago, Red Star began. Several powerful empires decided that humans were too dangerous to leave alone. They formed an alliance in secret. They gathered the largest fleet ever assembled in our galaxy's history, 5,000 warships from 30 different species. The images above the chamber floor showed an armada so vast it blotted out the stars. Ships of all sizes and designs gathered together for one purpose: to eliminate the human threat. They thought they understood human capabilities, Red Star continued. They had studied every human battle, every technology, every strategy. They believed that with enough ships, enough weapons, they could overwhelm Earth's defenses. After all, humans had been in space for less than 2 centuries. How strong could they really be? Thomas watched as the massive fleet approached the Sol system. They moved with absolute confidence, their numbers making them bold. Earth's response was unexpected, Red Star said. A single human appeared on every communication channel across the fleet. Commander David Cooper of Earth Defense. He spoke just 4 words: "Please turn back now." The images showed a middle-aged man in a simple gray uniform. He looked tired, almost sad, as he delivered his warning to the fleet. The fleet commanders laughed. Red Star's voice grew quieter. They thought it was human arrogance. They launched their first attack wave. 1,000 ships, enough to conquer most worlds 10 times over. What happened next made Thomas lean forward in his seat. The attack fleet approached Earth, weapons ready. Then suddenly, hundreds of points of light appeared around Earth's orbit. Humans had hidden their true capabilities all along, Red Star said. Those simple defense satellites we'd seen, they were decoys. The real ones were invisible, using technology combining stealth systems from 12 different species in ways nobody had thought possible. The images showed beams of energy unlike anything Thomas had ever seen. They weren't simple laser weapons. They somehow bent space itself, creating corridors of distorted reality that torn ships apart. Humans hadn't just been studying alien technology, Red Star explained. They'd been perfecting it, combining it in ways that should have been impossible. Their weapons used principles from a dozen different sciences. Their shields didn't just block attacks. They'd redirected the energy to power their defenses. Thomas watched in awe as the first wave of ships was systematically taken apart. Not a single human vessel had even moved yet. The fleet commanders panicked. Red Star continued. They ordered all remaining ships to attack at once. Surely they couldn't stop 4,000 ships. His energy form flickered. That's when we learned humans had been holding back even more. The images showed what looked like small moons appearing from behind Earth's actual moon. They were battle stations, hidden in plain sight for years. Each one carried weapons that combined technologies from dozens of worlds in ways their original creators had never imagined. It was over in 23 minutes, Red Star said quietly. 4,000 ships destroyed or disabled. Not a single human life lost. Earth's defense grid hadn't even been strained. Commander Cooper appeared on the channels again, speaking to the surviving ships. He said something that haunts us still. We could have done this at any time, to any world. We chose not to. Please remember why. The images faded, leaving the council chamber in dim light. Thomas saw genuine terror in the eyes of the older council members who had witnessed these events. That day, Red Star concluded, we learned the most terrifying truth about humans. All their apparent weaknesses, all their seemingly peaceful advances, all their careful diplomatic moves, they were choices. Humans had the power to dominate the galaxy. They simply decided not to. Red Star's glow dimmed as he finished his story, returning to its usual soft red color. The council chamber remained silent as the ancient being floated back to his seat. Every diplomat, every representative, every observer was lost in thought about what they had just learned. Thomas Parker sat in his chair, understanding at last why his simple suggestion had caused such panic. He looked at the Unity World's ambassador, still shimmering with barely contained water energy, then at the Star Empire's representative, whose metallic form reflected the chamber's lights. Both seemed less eager for war now. That, Red Star said softly, is why we fear human involvement in wars. Not because you are cruel, there are crueler species. Not because you are powerful, there are others with vast fleets. We fear you because you are unpredictable. You turn weaknesses into strengths. You make others like yourselves. You hide your true power behind gentle words and peaceful trades. The council leader, Bluestone, raised his crystalline form. We must now decide, he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. The young human's suggestion lies before us. Do we dare ask for human military advisors to help with the current crisis? The chamber erupted in worried whispers. Thomas watched as different groups of aliens huddled together, discussing in urgent tones. The Unity Worlds and Star Empire representatives kept glancing at each other, then at him. Consider carefully, Red Star warned. If we reject human help, they may choose to involve themselves anyway. Remember the Crystal Empire. Remember the Green Harvest Worlds. Humans do not need our permission to change the balance of power. Thomas stood up slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. May I speak? He asked. Bluestone nodded. The human representative has the floor. I've learned much today, Thomas said, choosing his words carefully. I understand your fear now. But consider this. In every story we've heard, humans only use their full strength when forced to. The Mars colony defended itself when attacked. Earth revealed its power only when threatened. Even our mercenaries and advisors, they taught defense, not conquest. He paused, looking around the chamber. Yes, we can be dangerous. Yes, we can change the balance of power. But we prefer to trade, to teach, to help others protect themselves. That's not weakness. That's not deception. That's who we are. The chamber was silent again, but this time it felt different. The fear was still there, but something else too. Understanding, perhaps even hope. Bluestone spoke again. We will vote. Should we request human military advisors to help establish a peace zone between the Unity worlds and the Star Empire? Thomas held his breath as the votes were cast. One by one, lights appeared in the air. Blue for yes, red for no. The numbers grew closer and closer until... The council has decided, Bluestone announced. By a margin of 7 votes, we will request human assistance. As if on cue, a message appeared on the chamber's main display. A human ship had already arrived at the edge of the disputed zone. It carried both military advisors and peace negotiators, ready to help if asked. Red Star's laugh echoed through the chamber, the first time anyone had heard him laugh in decades. Of course they're already there, he said. Humans are always prepared, aren't they? Thomas smiled. We try to be. And we'll do our best to help create peace, not war. As the council session ended, Thomas heard the Unity World's ambassador whisper to the Star Empire representative, "May the cosmic forces help whichever side refuses to negotiate fairly." The metallic being's response was quick. "I don't think we need to worry about that. Nobody wants to be the next Crystal Empire." And so the galaxy learned one final lesson about humans that day. Sometimes the most powerful warriors make the best peacemakers, precisely because everyone knows what happens if peace fails.